Hello, everybody. I am so excited today. I cannot believe my good fortune in getting this wonderful guest to join me. I have every once in a while, you come across somebody who is truly a kindred spirit. And most of us walk through the world thinking, nobody understands me, right? We're all unique snowflakes. But once in a while, you see a snowflake you recognize. And that's who I brought on with us today. Fernanda Carapinha has been a serial entrepreneur. She's been in media, entertainment, technology. She's had a multi-decade career and very successful and building multiple enterprises, doing amazing things in the entertainment industry, and is on the cutting edge of data science, SaaS business, and really also now channeling her powers for good to help women entrepreneurs that take the leadership role that they need in the world to really help lift us into this next incarnation that is going to be our society following this global pandemic that we're still currently in. And Fernanda, thank you so much for being here today. Welcome to my show, Career Invincibility.
Yes, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be on your show, Christine, and it's such a pleasure to really meet you. And you're such an inspiration, and your story is so amazing. And I'm so glad that we got an opportunity to connect.
Yes, me too. And what I'm passionate about is really helping our listeners to understand what the journey is for some of us. Because I meet someone like you, fully evolved and completely successful, and you're a wonderful human. And I just think, oh, she's someone to admire, and I could never be that, right? Because we're always comparing ourselves to other people, but we never see the journey behind who you've become. And
Yes.
so let's talk a bit about what has brought you through your life's trials and tribulations. Tell us, if you wouldn't mind, a few things about what you've had to overcome and how you did that to get to where you are today, which is really extraordinary.
Well, thank you. I will start because I do believe it's really important that people understand a context for someone's journey. And I'm still very much a work in progress, and I hope I'll be a work in progress until the day I die, because even though it's difficult to feel constantly that you're not really where you want to be, which I think we kind of constantly, especially women, work really hard to evolve and don't give ourselves credit during the process. But I was originally born in Portugal. My parents emigrated to the United States when I was a young child. Both of my parents were blue-collar workers. My parents had a sixth grade education. I was the first person in my family to complete high school, never mind go to college, and I went to an Ivy League institution. And I say that because I, did not come from privilege at all, and everything that I've really have been able to attain in my life, I've done so out of really pure passion and desire. And I feel that one of the most important things that has fueled my journey really started from the time that I was a young child, and my parents didn't speak English. And so I had to accompany them everywhere to translate for them, and really became a little adult as a kid. And while that certainly wasn't fun as a child to not have that, that pure focus on creativity and play all the time, and I grew up really quickly, it really served me well as a professional woman, because I had a lot of intrinsic confidence in myself that was started from a very young age. And I only mention that now to listeners because sometimes you feel that if you come from a family and you don't have a lot of money and you're poor and you're struggling and you're managing a lot, that doesn't really count for anything. And it really does. It really builds character. It builds strength. It builds determination. It builds resiliency. And those are really qualities that you need always in success and in striving for what it is you're passionate about.
Well, and isn't that the truth? And I didn't remember that. We have both come from parents of immigrants, and that's a very unique journey in its own way of, being the first person to go after the American dream that they brought you here for, right?
Yeah.
And the pressure that also puts on you, but how it can be yet another barrier, like the poverty is not enough, then you have the cultural differences, and you've got people at home that don't speak the language perfectly or have accents when they do. And, so all the burden is on you to create something with your life, but it's a driving force. And you don't want to let that whole vision down that they have for you. So making your parents proud could be a running theme throughout all of the, let's call them failures and successes, right? That there's a reason to keep going after
Yeah.
each time.
Well,
And
yeah, I'm
please,
sorry to interrupt you.
no,
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 I,
go ahead.
I, I I was just going to add that, that definitely is the case with a lot of cultures. In my particular case, my parents would have been happy if I just was working at a grocery store locally because they didn't really know what opportunities there were in the world. They were my father was a professional soccer player who moved to the United States, and there was no soccer to be had here. So he had to work in a factory. My mother worked in a factory. So, their American dream was really all about sustaining oneself and building a family. It wasn't about having a fancy house or having fancy cars or me becoming a doctor or a lawyer. It was about, providing stability and a good foundation and being very family centered. So when I wanted to go to college, to an Ivy League school, they had no idea what the difference was between a community college and University of Pennsylvania. They had no idea what working in the entertainment business meant. So I always was intrinsically motivated, really, because in high school, I was fortunate enough to go to a good public high school, and all my friends were really smart, and all my friends were in a particular track. And I was lucky to fall into that cohort, and I just followed them. And because I had no teachers, I had no coaches, I had no advisors who were saying, you should apply here, you should apply there. So I think in my particular case, I never had that guilt or feeling like I didn't want to let my parents down. They kind of felt like if you can sustain yourself and you can have a family and build a family, then you are a success. And that's kind of a beautiful, freeing thing, I think, for me, in that I never really felt that I was answering to any master except my own. And my goal truly was to have work that was a calling, something that I would get up out of bed and feel so excited to do, because I saw how, my parents would go and work in a factory and came home every day, and it was hard. And I didn't want that for myself. I really wanted to feel like my work mattered and that I had an impact on my world. And I was ignorant enough to not know how difficult that was. And I think that is actually a real gift. When you don't know what you're doing, you don't know that what you're doing is breaking all the rules. And therefore, there is this freedom in being ignorant and not listening to people saying, you can't do it that way.
So that makes perfect sense, right? That story in terms of how you've arrived at where you're at. But there's a zig and a zag to the journey, isn't there? As a grown up, once you've got the education behind you, you've had the great jobs, and you've taken an entrepreneurial path, which is never a straight line for most people. And at the same time, we have our personal lives and things that come up. And how did that childhood fortify you, and what were some of the things that you drew upon when you were faced with your own personal challenges as an adult?
Well, yeah, there's been a lot of zigs and zags in my career and in my life, both on the personal side as well as professional. I think what I've drawn upon is my ability to deliver. Even though there are people around me in my life, especially everything that I've done has been first for me. Like, I will become passionate about something and pursue it because it's important to me. And my attitude is, if other people do it, why can't I? And I have an insatiable appetite for research and to learn and to explore new things. And that's something that's really driven a lot of the work that I do, because I'm a student. I'm a student of certain areas, and then I go out, and I feel that there are oftentimes, as we all feel, when there's something you're really passionate about, you kind of wake up in the middle of the night and you have an idea, and then those ideas keep coming and they kind of snowball and they grow. And whether it's smart or not, I follow them and I honor those feelings. And I think that my upbringing has really given me this sense of fearlessness to go into waters that I've never gone into. I published a book. I knew nothing about publishing. I got a publishing deal relatively easy. And my thought was, it's kind of like, well, why not? Let's try it, and I think that if more of us had this fearlessness that I think we want for our children, like, just try it. What could happen? You could fail. So what? Who cares if you fail? I think that the sad part is if you don't try. And I think my biggest regret would be if I lay in my deathbed and had regrets about things that I'd always been passionate about and never put any energy behind.
So, how, we've talked about, you've put a lot of work into, and you're a leader in helping women entrepreneurs. You've developed and founded the Women Entrepreneurs Global, and you have talk a bit about what does it take to be a female entrepreneur? What's the difference of mindset, and how do we what's the 2.0 or the 5.0 of that? Where are we going, and how do we get there?
Well, I have as you know, I also have a psych degree. I went back to school at one point and got a master's in psychology and practiced for a little while and never finished my clinical hours. But it's something that is really part of my heart and soul. And I feel that the success of women in business, especially in particular as an entrepreneur, has a lot to do with our mindset. And I know that sounds very cliche, but it's really true, because to be a successful entrepreneur, you really have to be really strong, really strong. It's kind of like guerrilla warfare. You have to be able to be dropped into the middle of a jungle and get back to base camp on your own. You have to be incredibly resourceful. And you have to have real vision and dedication in the face of incredible adversity, whether it's, taking money out of your savings, putting your financial, health at risk, making personal sacrifices in terms of your time, facing an incredible amount of rejection. And as we all know, the odds are against us, right? The percentage of women that get funded is, somewhere between 2 to 4% if you are looking for money that come from VCs. But I don't like to really focus on the stats, because I think the stats, like everything else, just are a barrier to success, right? You just have to have this mindset that says, I'm capable, I'm committed, and I'll do whatever it takes, and I have a plan. I've done my homework. And I think that where women get off base is when they don't do enough research about what it is that they want to do once they have reached milestones within their own vision for success. So, for example, before you get started, you need to really reflect on, okay, let's presume that I have finished my product, or I've finished my service application, or whatever it is that you're building. Now what? Let's just imagine it's been 2 years in the making. You invested all this money. Now what do I do? And